And good evening, John Russell here from the Greater Muskegon Sports Network and CatchMark. We're also here with my co-host, the mostest. We got Scott DeCamp of CatchMark, partner in crime, Cal Van Single, and our very special guest. He drew straws and lost. Our local football expert here, David Dusenberry. David, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
You still got time to run.
Yeah.
He lunged. He thought about it.
Well, I'll tell you what, we went in with 6. We got half that many. I'm not good at math, but that's not necessarily good, is it,
That's not
Scott?
what we're used to.
That's not what we're
in
used
this
to.
area.
No.
It's and especially if you look at Muskegon and Mona Shores.
Right.
I covered their game back in week 7, I want to say. It was our CatchMark game of the week. And watching them play, it's a pretty high level of football, and the atmosphere is incredible and all those things. But you're not thinking both those teams are going to be bounced by the second round.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, let's start right out with the D2. We knew this was going to be a whale of a game. Caledonia took it to the Shores Sailors, 49-12.
Yeah, they controlled it from start to finish. There was a lot of things at play here. I just think they were the better team, and especially on that given night. But I know that Mark Konechny, the starting quarterback, was banged up still. He had missed, I think, practice Monday, Tuesday, because he had his ankle rolled in the game before in the win over Forest Hill Central. And then I think their starting center, they had some snap issues and stuff because he was injured or something like that. So they had some things that contributed. But at the end of the day, I think Caledonia just kind of took it to them overall, and they deserve the credit more so than anything else. So
Yeah, I thought Coach Koziak, I heard some of his post-game comments. Of course, he's a classy guy anyhow, but I really thought, he talked about all the tragedies that they've had to deal with within the program. He lost his father, and how this team will always be very special. And that's tough. I mean, you come back, 2 state championship teams, and you don't want these kids to feel any less of that, that situation. So he said, these guys bonded in a very special way.
imagine that run, though. I mean, for a school of the program where Mona Shores was, let's say, 10 years ago,
Right.
no one would have envisioned them winning back-to-back state titles, getting to Ford Field 3 times in a row, and 4 times in the last 7, 8 years, whatever that was. Just an incredible run, and it's weird to see it end like this, but it's going to at some point.
Yeah,
So
you're going to play those tough teams. And Cal, like you said, it wasn't so long ago that all the media, ourselves kind of included, said, boy, Mona Shores, last Greater Muskegon area team that's not in the playoffs, and look what Matt's done. He won it from 1-8 to 2 state championships.
He took a sleeping giant and made them a giant, is what he did. And I mean, literally 10 years ago, you and I were the only 2 broadcasting from that press box, and that's not a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just straight up, and you'd hardly ever see anybody there. And now all of a sudden you just can't get in there. If you do, you got to wedge yourself in there. I posted it on my Facebook this week. I don't know if you guys seen it. About 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago. It was Muskegon Mona Shores. Expected crowd was 14,000 to 16,000, and we were all, in there wedged in there like a shoehorn. And we look around and going, wow, look what Matt Koziak and his staff, what they've done, since 2010. Jumping back real quickly to that game the other night with Mona Shores, I was at the Ferris game on Saturday, and I was in the line to get food at halftime, if you could imagine
go figure that.
Go figure that out. And right behind me was a guy that had a Cal hat on. I said, oh, hey, Fighting Scots, great job last night. And he goes, man, he says, we couldn't have played any better. He said, we just came right out and kind of run it right at them, and I don't think they were expecting that. Because I go to a lot of their games. It's probably the best we played all season, and we were tested. Come out of the OK Red, but he says, we just played really well. And I said, well, good luck. I said, good luck on Saturday, because I know what's coming.
did you tell him you had to break it to him? He said, by the way, the quarterback for Traverse City Central, he's committed to Notre Dame.
I did. And he looked at me and he goes, what? And I went,
not as a quarterback, but as a linebacker. Think about that.
Yeah, I said, they got a kid going to Notre Dame and I almost word for word. I said, he plays quarterback, but I think he'll probably be a linebacker. He's a special player. And he goes, I had no idea they had a kid going to Notre Dame. Now, yeah, he's a very special. And I said, not only that, he's a 4.0 student. He works with special needs kids. From everything I hear, he is an incredible young man. So
I saw a picture of him for the first time today. He's a thick young man.
Yeah. He's fun in the weight room.
Yeah.
Kind of an underachiever is what you're saying, huh, Cal?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
David, your thoughts on...
I don't have a lot to contribute with these higher divisions.
Okay.
I'm mostly 4, 5, and 6.
All right, we're going to keep you we're going to keep you going down there, but
we're going to lean on you because I know you're prepared. You got a folder full of info
that's right.
there.
So, Let's move to Muskegon, Division III rather. Cedar Springs over Muskegon. I'd fallen asleep on Saturday, right? Took a nap, and when I woke up, I was like Rip Van Winkle. Cal, I think, had texted me and said, "Yeah, you hear Muskegon lost." And when you get to this level, obviously anything can happen. And Cedar Springs was certainly a worthy opponent, but I think, kind of alluding to what you said, Scott, going in, you got Mona Shores and you got Muskegon, and to think that they're both going to go out, especially Muskegon at home, again, I think it goes back to we take Muskegon for granted, maybe. I always talk about people that do that, and here I am sitting on my couch hearing that Muskegon lost, and thought, whoa, that took me back.
It's so easy to do that,
Yeah.
just because of the success, and so people get just spoiled by it,
Sure.
frankly. And I was actually covering soccer last Saturday on a freelance basis at Comstock Park, and one of the MHSAA crews, they'll do like the broadcasting and the video and stuff for the state finals. And there was a guy in between the soccer matches. He was listening to the Cedar Springs Muskegon game because he was a Cedar Springs teacher.
Right.
And he was all giddy. And I'm like, "What's the score?" And he's like, 14-7, Cedar Springs. And I tuned in for a minute, and then it was 21-7. Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then they cut it to 21-14. Muskegon did. And at that point, you're thinking, well, they might have a shot. But yeah, Cedar Springs closed it out. But they were due in this rivalry too. They were well coached. They're a good team. You got to give them credit too. And Muskegon's really young. They're maybe it's something where it's just part of the process for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I talked about Coach Koziak's classy comments at the end of the Caledonia game. Shane Fairfield had some, you knew his heart had to be broken. I mean, he's not looking at going out, a couple of weeks into the playoffs either. But I thought he handled the interview very well. Again, saluted his kids, talked about, as we said, they are a very, very young team.
Yeah.
Your heart certainly goes out to the seniors. I mean, there's no tomorrow for those guys. But, boy, their future is definitely ahead of them.
Their future's really bright. They've been starting 7, 8 underclassmen for quite a while now. They've had some health issues here in the last few weeks, and I haven't talked to Shane. Texted a few times. I didn't ask him, but I wouldn't be surprised. He might have started even 9 to 10 underclassmen in that game, or they've seen significant minutes. Once again, that center quarterback exchange, they need to clean that up. For them going forward. And I heard that was kind of an issue again. Got bit by the big play. You were talking about the running back that burned him 3 times for 120 yards on rushing, So, and, a couple of turnovers. I think they had a drive going and they fumbled on. So, the little things that you might be able to get away with during the regular season. But when you get to week 2, especially week 3, the playoffs, you got to play really well. You got to play, fundamental football, discipline focused. And if you don't, you get sent home. And Shane had never lost to a Wing T team. Gus Kapolka, though, he's going, I'm going to, those guys were, I don't want to say they were laying in wait. And I don't want to say they circled Muskegon, but I think that crew might have said, this might be our year.
When you're Muskegon, you get everybody's best shot.
Yes,
it's just
sir.
the way it is. And Mona Shores is finding that out. Montague's known that. When you're on the top of the mountain, that's what happens. But everyone wants a piece of you, and you better be ready every game because they're coming.
Yeah,
I think Cal said it best before, and boy, he doesn't usually say a lot of things best.
I know. Unless I comment on, if you make a comment and I agree.
And you
well,
agree,
then,
that's it. But when you said that Mona Shores has went from the hunter to being the hunted, and that, two state championships, you're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. And Muskegon certainly is not in any position to ever sneak up on anybody. I mean, you're going to get your best game. I don't care if you're the, if you're the Little Sisters of the Poor. They're going to give you the best game.
Well, when you have 18 state titles to your credit, you're the winningest team in the state of Michigan. Right. You're the 6th winningest team in the nation. Everybody wants you. That's like the prom queen. I mean, you get the best looking girl in high school. Every kid wants to take the beautiful girl to the prom, right? So it's that same thing. It's
Did you get the prom queen or not?
I married the prom queen.
All right, there you go. See,
back then there was no way.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly, because my buddies all tell me to this day, they'll just say, Van Singel, how did you ever pull that off? And I don't know. This is like talking to you. How do you break into this industry? In the right place at the right time, and he felt sorry for me. And he knew I could drive. And carry equipment. What's that?
And she felt sorry for you?
Yes, she did. Yeah. It was a mercy
If you
thing.
hang around long enough, they're going to give you something to do, right?
Right.
That's how I got it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Let's move on to Division 4. Oh, I'm sorry.
Beauty
Yes,
for
I'm sorry.
Shane
Yeah.
is they're going to be back next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
And I think I said off the air before we went on, this might be a good loss. Might make those younger kids just hungrier. They don't like losing. That's Scott, you cover them a lot. That's a group that doesn't like to lose.
No, they were. I don't want to be too extreme and say devastated, but they were pretty.
Yeah.
They were pretty shocked. I mean,
Yeah.
just because they weren't expecting that. You know,
Nope.
they were. And am I going to say they're looking ahead? No, I can't say that because I wasn't around them. I don't know. But I know DeWitt was one that they had circled probably. They wanted a shot at them at least because
Right.
that's who knocked them out last week, and there's a good little rivalry
Yeah.
brewing between those two teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. I think that surprised a lot of people though. The
Sure.
outcome Saturday.
Sure.
Well, let's put it this way: a lot of the Muskegon coaches went to watch DeWitt on Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'm with you.
And
They
that's
want-
not, and again, that's not to say that they're looking ahead, because a lot of schools do that. Like if you're playing on a Saturday and there's your opponent's going to play on a Friday, a lot of coaches are going to go watch
Right.
who the potential next opponent is, because if you don't, you feel like you're not prepared for it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a delicate thing because you want to make sure that you're focused on that game at hand, but you still got to do your homework
Yeah.
a little bit on the other stuff too.
Sure. We'll move on to D4 game that we did on Greater Muskegon Sports Network. We didn't turn out well for Whitehall. They had their opportunities. They got beat by a very good Cadillac team, first of all, 24-14. But boy, penalties. I think Tony Sigmund, I could just see he probably had a sleepless night then. He's ifs and buts. I mean, he's got it. I mean, well, you look at their first drive, they score a touchdown, get called back on a holding penalty. They had a holding penalty before that. I'm not sure what the yardage and penalties were, but Whitehall was on the bad end of that, and it just seemed like every time something good would happen, there'd be a penalty or something like that. So it was they were fighting an uphill battle right from the start.
Go ahead. I'll let you go.
I don't really know much what to say for this one. It surprised me. I
Yeah.
know that Cadillac was the Division IV runner-up last year, but I thought Whitehall had a swinging chance at this.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, they like I said, if it wasn't for the mistake, I mean, you don't want to make excuses, but yeah, I mean, that was huge. I don't think you can overemphasize what having a touchdown taken away from you, because it was one of those things they thought, hey, we might have a track meet here. I mean, Cadillac comes down, they score, of course, and they run the ball and they pass very seldom, and they pass to one kid. It was the goofiest thing I ever saw. It's like you know it's going to go to this guy, and somehow he would just catch it. And then they did kind of diversify their passing game a little bit,
Yeah.
and got a few more guys involved. Your thoughts, and Cal?
I
Go ahead. No,
really
go ahead.
thought Whitehall was going to squeak this one out.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, with their balanced offense with Boley and Stratton and Pruitt and
Especially coming off that game that they had over against Sparta. I mean, I was watching the film of that, and I was just impressed. I mean, the Stratton kid, and I'm not just trying to single him out, but boy, we talk about it all the time, how he's grown. I mean, he's a sophomore in school age, but certainly football age, he's not a sophomore anymore.
He's played up in all sports with these kids over the years,
Yeah.
always. You know, he's always played a grade above, so he's used to these kids.
I think about 330 yards in penalties. I believe that game, 200 for Whitehall. Uncharacteristic, one holding penalty after another. So I don't know if this crew is, and I'm not going to blame the officials, I don't know if this crew is specifically looking at something different than what Whitehall had been doing all year before. Normally you get a playoff crew, usually second round. Normally you're pretty decent officials, but there were just certainly a lot of penalties, a lot of personal fouls, and Whitehall fell into it. We've seen personal fouls on them.
Yeah, it got a little chippy at the end.
Yeah, Cadillac was really chippy. I mean, they got away with a lot of stuff. One time, right after the play, I've seen a Cadillac kid two-handed one of the, I think maybe Boley, one of the running backs in the helmet. You know, kind of got away with it, snapped his head over. So Cadillac played pretty chippy, played with that chip on their shoulder, played with an edge. Got Whitehall, I felt, to buy into it. Whitehall started getting uncharacteristic, unsportsmanlike kind of penalties, which we didn't see really. You know, we did some Whitehall games this year. I know you covered them a lot. I didn't see it all year, and I think, and like I said, 200 yards of penalties, man, that's just tough to overcome.
Yeah, and this was, I'm looking at their digital scout stats that they keep, Whitehall does, and this would appear to be conservative. 14 penalties for 130 yards for Whitehall, 9 for 95 for Cadillac. And again, maybe that was conservative side, but I mean, you talk about an up and down track meet. That's a track meet for the officials, just marking the ball back and forth with
really
all
is.
the. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's a game with no flow, and I'm not trying to blame it on the officials and say, they ruin the game. I mean, if it's a call, you got to make it. But man, I just can't imagine. When there's no flow to a game like that, you're just kind of looking over your shoulder every time you make a play.
Yeah.
I think they had that with Reed City too, though. I think they had a lot of penalties that disrupted them.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I had read in someplace that was up to 330, but maybe that was just that 200 there. It sounds like it's about 200 total yards.
But what I'm hearing though is this maybe they might have stopped even putting them in the stat system. I mean, you guys were there, you would know, but it was just an obscene amount of penalties and
it was flagged
and yards. Yeah,
it really was.
I want to give kudos to Cadillac to their ground crew. That football field looked like it was October.
Yeah.
Not like it was the 1st of November. That field had nothing to do with it and didn't come into play like maybe it would other places. And I know they'll never hear this, but kudos to those guys. That field looked phenomenal.
What do you mean they'll never hear this? People in Honduras are listening to it.
Well, yeah, there was last week, and I totally missed it. So, yeah.
Well, it's not that far away.
No, it's not. It's not. No. But kudos to those guys because it's hard. Yeah. I mean, being a farmer and being in the ag world my whole life, I know how difficult it is to keep things growing, keep things looking good late in the season, and that field looked phenomenal.
That was an X factor for me, I thought, going into that game. And then Montague, what was the surface at Reed City going to look like?
Yeah.
And then Oak Ridge and Tri-County, again, what was the surface there going to look like?
Yeah,
because I had heard it was a mud pit at Tri-County. Maybe it wasn't as bad as people were saying it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, just a little sidebar. I want to talk about the other side of this bracket. Good luck to Cadillac. They only have to play Unity Christian. And I remember getting this score as an update. And I thought, I asked the person that sent it to us, are you sure?
Basketball, maybe?
Yeah, 79-21 over Grand Rapids Christian.
One team was playing basketball.
Yeah. We all know that Unity Christian is a real deal. But I don't know, I'm still gobsmacked at 71-21 this far into the playoffs, a couple of weeks in the playoffs, against a decent Grand Rapids Christian team.
That's a Grand Rapids Christian team that played they played a tough schedule.
Yeah.
They lost to Forest Hill Central by a touchdown. And I mean, if you take it one step further, you look at Unity. I mean, I think everyone's going to be picking them not just this week, but probably to win the whole thing. But if you look ahead a little bit, if Edwardsburg can take care of business, and where I'm going with that is, I'm sure that David saw Edwardsburg against Montague.
Yeah.
And can you imagine what that Unity Edwardsburg game is going to look like if that happens?
Yeah, high scoring. Lots of points on the board.
Yeah. Yep. So I have a theory about that game. It might ruffle a few feathers, but here's my theory on that game. Both private schools, so they're vying for these kids that want to come into the private Christian education, right? Mm-hmm. But don't look at Unity. They rolled. Grand Rapids Christian. They rolled them. Well, now if you're a young football player out there and you're going,
yeah,
Unity's got this great young program and they're winning and they just beat Grand Rapids Christian, and I can just see a young kid going, I think I'm going to go to Unity.
I can't remember who brought this point up, so I'd love to give credit to whoever said it, but there might be something to the fact that Unity had to call it off in the playoffs last year because of COVID.
Yeah.
They had an unbeaten, dominant team going, and they had to just stop playing because of COVID. Do you think they're not leaving any stone unturned now? They're like, we're not taking any chances. We're going to put it all out there, and we're going to keep playing until the end of the game. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good justification, but they are just steamrolling teams.
Sure.
Yeah, they are. So, yeah.
We'll move on to Division 5 and Oak Ridge over Tri-County. Again, concerns of the field, what it was going to be like at Tri-County, because I know we were getting the call. I think we were on our way back from the week before the Montague and Central Montcalm game. Mm-hmm. One of your buddies called and said, boy, it's just a quagmire here. And we were thinking about, are they going to have to move it? And I kind of joked. I said, well, Oak Ridge has got that turf field. They'd be more than happy to host it. But so I don't know if the field played into it or not. But Oak Ridge, it was good to see them get back on track. Yeah, I know, Cal, you've talked about them being Jekyll and Hyde a little bit this year, but they were on last week against Tri-County, 58-22.
Yeah, and it really started up front with Driscoll, Shappy, Bean, Joza, and Harris. Those front five, man, they got it going early. I think it was 28-7 or 28-6, 28-6, I think, at the end of the first quarter. So they came out right away, and credit Kerry Harger. He's going to come out and say, hey, I'm going to put the foot on the throttle, and I'm not taking it off for quite a while because, you want to get that big lead because then you can get some of your subs in and also so you can get your starters out so there's no injuries. But you don't want to put any doubt at all in Tri-County's mind that, hey, maybe, and they didn't. They just came out, whacked them early, and I mean, I think if Tri-County at the end of the first quarter had any thought of winning, that was probably taken away.
Yeah, the rushing stats in that game were Oak Ridge 389, Tri-County 112.
Yeah.
Didn't Vanderput have almost 200?
He had over 200. Oak Ridge averaged 11.1 yards per carry on the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. And
And
we're
think about that. They're moving the sticks every single carry then. Under that.
Yep.
Yeah, but Vanderput had 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 17 carries, plus he caught a touchdown pass. So he's had a great year. And they've actually split him out a little more than maybe what he used to do.
Yep.
But they've got 3 good backs between Vanderput, Trevor Jones, who's a sophomore, and then Brendan Raymond, who's also had a really nice season. He's a nice player back there too for him.
Yep. And then you have that line at 6'3", 268 across the front.
Yeah.
That's a big dominant line, and they've been together now 11 games. They know how to get it done.
They're going to need that line.
Yeah, that way they'll.
I expected Oak Ridge to come in there and take care of business, because I don't think Tri-County has the same schedule, their conference, but I didn't expect a margin of victory.
Yeah.
It was quite
In Oak Ridge,
surprising.
the last 2 playoff years, I believe they're now 5-0 against the CSAA Gold, because they played all CSAA Gold teams in those 5 games I'm referring to. And the margin of victory has been pretty lopsided in all those games if you average it out.
Yeah. And, to your point about Vanderput, obviously a great game last week, but I remember the Whitehall game that we saw them play. Remember, we're waiting for Corey Vanderput to carry the ball, and first it's Jones carries the ball about 3 times, and
Raymond, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're welcome.
Yeah, Raymond winds up carrying the ball about 3 times, and I'm thinking, wow, they're not even using Vanderput, and they're getting good yardage, and then they start using Vanderput. So I thought, wow, what a 3-headed monster Oak Ridge has back there. You don't hear about the other guys so much. I mean, because you got obviously Vanderput back there, who certainly deserves the accolades. But they've got a really solid game.
And Danachek's had a nice season too. He's been solid.
He has.
He can throw it down there and kind of enough to where you have to respect it.
Yeah.
They're not going to be coming out with some aerial show, but you need to respect what they're going to do
I
passing
think
the
he
ball.
throws a good ball.
He does.
I do too.
Tight and
I wish he maybe had more true receivers to be able to utilize that a little bit more. Like you say, they fudge it out a little bit with putting Vanderput and Vanderput out there a little bit, and some of the running backs to kind of take those swing passes or whatever. But you're right. I mean, I was impressed again going back to that Whitehall game. I mean, I'm looking at him throwing the ball 30 yards in the air or whatever it is. This young man, and he's mobile. He reminded me a lot of who was it? Luttrell that they had a few years
Brady
ago.
Luttrell.
Remember,
Yeah.
you could never catch him,
Yeah.
and Danachek was really elusive back there as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
it
he's a
reminded
good
me lot
runner,
of that.
too.
Yeah, he really is.
I think he's a junior, isn't he?
Danachek is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and if you look at now, granted, I haven't seen this kid really any other times, and I think his last name's Garcia. He caught the touchdown pass against Catholic on a halfback pass that gave them the lead at halftime. That was a great game, by the way. 30-28 Catholic in week 9.
Right.
But that wasn't Danachek throwing that time. Like I said, it was Brendan Raymond throwing a halfback pass. Beautiful pass right in stride. But so they've got some other kids. You just don't see them as much maybe in the
Right.
passing game.
Lorenzo Garcia, junior at 5'9", 147.
Yeah. So he was the kid. Yeah, he's got a little speed to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Other side of that bracket, they're going to be. You want to talk about it now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, they're going to be playing Grand Rapids Catholic, 44-6. We talked about one-sided scores. I mean, that was pretty one-sided against a very good West Catholic team.
Yeah, that's Muskegon Catholic's lone loss is West Catholic.
Yeah.
And Muskegon Catholic lost 28-6. Now, again, we say this over and over. At least I say it every week. You can't use the transitive property in football because when A beats B, B beats C, does A beat C? Not necessarily. But if we did play that
I'm
game,
glad you broke down the transit for Cal there a little bit. He was,
but if you do, let's do the transitive property, okay? Let's try it anyway. You've got West Catholic beat Muskegon Catholic 28-6. Muskegon Catholic beat Oak Ridge 30-28. West Catholic lost to Grand Rapids Catholic Central 44-6. You know where I'm going with this.
right.
So what's the score going to be against Oak Ridge? Now, I'm not saying it's going to be because I think
Right.
Oak Ridge has more pride than that. But they got an uphill battle for sure. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I've said all along that this has been my go figure year. I mean, like exactly what you said. I mean, you can't put logic into anything that happens here. I mean, go back to the Oak Ridge Whitehall game.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Oak Ridge just cream Whitehall, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, Oak Ridge is going to be this monolith. And boy, what happened to Whitehall? And then all of a sudden you have Montague just crush Oak Ridge, and you think, well, wait a minute. I mean, it was a whole year, at least from our standpoint of picking. We say it all the time. We were at the games we wanted to be at, and I think we only had 1 or 2 close games. I mean, they were all.
And then Ravenna gets rolled by Whitehall, and then they play Montague tough.
Yeah.
And then they're down. Then they get rolled and play tough against Oak Ridge in the same game.
Sure.
So figure that out.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I think it's just a few key mistakes, you know, like the Stratton interception at Oak Ridge. I think things turned at that moment. You know, high school kids are just kids. So
Yeah, they really are, and we do forget that from time to time, David. I think about that as, you know, you're talking 16, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, a lot of pressure on them. I mean, everybody's in the stands, and they, you know, God love them, you know, they love their hometown heroes, but yeah, you think about what's going on in a kid's life at that point. Sure. I mean, you know, I'm lucky to, you know, be able to find my shoes when I'm 17 years old, you know, let alone, you know, try to, you know, have the world on your shoulder and play these big football games or sporting events or whatever the case may be.
Especially in Muskegon County.
Yeah.
So much more different over here than what it is, you know, in the up the 37
The
corridor,
expectations.
or the expectations in Muskegon County for football is just off the charts.
Right, exactly.
So Grand Rapids Catholic, that's the home of Ziegler, right? Nolan Ziegler.
Nolan Ziegler, yep, the Notre Dame commit.
Another Notre Dame.
Another Notre Dame commit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many state titles have they won in a row?
3 in a row. And
3 or 4?
And now they're playing without their starting quarterback, but they're still rolling. Their starting quarterback is Joey Silveri. He blew his knee out. He was just starting to get college attention finally, and then he blew his knee out. So I feel bad for him. He's a really nice player. Even as a freshman, he was mature beyond his years, but that just shows how much talent they've got running around there. They got, I think, a Passano, which is another GRCC name. They got a Passano playing quarterback now for GRCC. So
And they haven't missed much of a beat either.
no, they haven't at all.
Really, they have not. Division 6, Montague over Reed City by the score of 35-22. Want to start with David on this
Start
one?
with David, yeah.
You know, they came in motivated just like they did Oak Ridge. I mean, you could see it, you know, talking to each other, hyped up, and it just rolled. You know,
What was the field conditions were they?
they weren't great, but they certainly weren't what they were for Whitehall.
Right.
I think they were good enough to get a job done. I certainly wouldn't want to play on that every single week.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because we went down, you were there.
Yep.
Down on the
They
field
jumped
after.
on. Montague got off to a great start. Jumped on right away. Got the ball first. Drove right down. I'm trying to think. Did they did get the ball first? I think they took the ball first.
Yep. We
That's
received.
right. So Montague got it. Had a nice drive. Scored. Got a stop. Hit a big touchdown pass to Tug Nichols. So they're up 14-0 pretty early. And then it was just kind of back and forth for most of the rest of the game, and ended up being 28-22 for a while there down the stretch, and then Montague got a couple big stops, like a couple big 4th down stops, and got it. You know, they made the plays that they had to, and then Dylan Everett put it away with a really nice run on a I think it was a 4th and 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just needed to get the first down, but he got around the corner and made a couple people miss and kind of skipped his way in the end zone.
Yeah.
That was it.
He did his house cat thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what really helped him is being diverse.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure. I mean, Cooey, the last 2 weeks, he's been really sharp, I thought. And when he's sharp like that, that makes him much more difficult to defend.
Yeah. I told him after the game, keep throwing that ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really are a different team when he's on point like that.
Yeah, and you know what? They get a guy that was a big weapon for them last year back in Owen Peterson. He's been kind of missing in action with some injuries this year. I think they put him in at defense. I was talking to Coach Danette about it, more defense last week, but they're looking to work him more into the offense, and that's only going to help them this week.
And you know who's impressed me, too, as a sophomore, Paul Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Watch him
number
catch the
8.
ball over the middle, and you're like, holy smokes, because he catches the ball and then makes a couple moves and sprints to the end zone. And he's a good-sized kid, too, for a sophomore.
About 6'3", I think.
Yeah, he's a nice-looking athlete for them.
Yeah, for sure. He's been a good addition. Yeah, Owen's back, and I bet you see him more on offense this time. And I watched him doing warm-up drills and stuff like that. You can't even tell. He's running smooth.
Right.
You take a look at Montague. They have 4 of those 5 linemen back. Coming back for next year. Now, of course, Hayden McDonald is 6'3", 290. You're really going to miss him, all-state guy. And then they had Rolf goes out, but you bring in, I got it right.
Joel?
Yeah, Winkleman comes in and plays left guard.
Yeah.
You know, Winkleman just a sophomore at 6'3", 205. So and he's come in. He's a nice player for them. So they have a lot of kids. They got some kids to build on too. It's not just going to be. We heard their JVs struggled a little bit this year. You know, Montague's JVs didn't have really a great season.
A lot of them were up.
A lot of them were up also.
Yeah.
Did you say 205 or 305?
I don't think. What's 205 on the scale? Right, John? What's 205? 205.
Kind of goes.
Yeah, he's
My nose is
305.
right past that 205.
Yeah, it doesn't start. It doesn't stop at 200 for me. It keeps right on going.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's impressed me this year.
Yeah.
No, sorry, John, but you look at them and you look at Whitehall. I know we're talking about this year, but I mean, like you said, the cupboard's not going to be there for Montague, and Whitehall's got a really bright future too because they're loaded in the lower levels too. So.
Yeah, they have an eighth kid who's I think in 8th grade that is a freak athlete, just unbelievable.
Which school?
Whitehall.
Whitehall, yeah.
I can't think of his name. You've probably heard of him, but that kid,
Thompson?
what is it?
Thompson?
I
Well,
can't.
Camden's a freshman. Is that who you're talking about? He's a freshman.
yeah,
He's
he's a
a
phenomenal
very good
athlete.
athlete in basketball, football, and track.
Yeah.
No,
He's
maybe
really
he's
good.
maybe he's a freshman then, but
He's like
a
6'3",
quarterback?
6'4", probably Camden is already.
yeah, I seen him last year in middle school. I thought he was in high school, and I was like,
Is he kind of long and lanky?
oh, he was thick. This kid was thick
Oh, so
too.
you're talking about someone else then?
Yeah.
Because Camden's kind of a long, lanky kid,
But
long
he
strides.
looks like a quarterback, drop
Yeah.
back quarterback.
Yeah, they got some athletes coming.
They do.
And, you know, Montague gets these guys, I kind of call him the unsung hero. He's not so much an unsung hero because he had such a year last year, but as a sophomore, I mean, you and I raved about Brassfield.
Brassfield.
Yeah, I mean, this kid just, he looks like a veteran already. But kind of my unsung hero for Montague this year, one of them is Baird. He'll come in and he'll do whatever you ask him. He'll help you on defense. I mean, he's, you know, among their leading tacklers in some games. I think against Central Montcalm, the game that we did there, Housecat went out with an injury here. I think he had a stinger, so he missed a series or a good portion of a series. Man, they just give the ball to Baird. And
He's a tough kid.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to forget about some of these guys too, like Rodney Brassfield, Isaac Jarka, guys who started last year
Right,
as you know as sophomores or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're back, and I mean they're coming back again next year too. So
Sure.
But you know, Rodney has really did it for the team this year, going from a glory position tight end to offensive lineman.
Yeah.
You know, he needs a lot of credit for that.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
he
bet,
does.
You bet, yeah.
I wonder what his fall beard looks like now. Because last year when I met him the first time, he's a 15-year-old, and he had a beard that would make all of us jealous.
I can grow a great beard. It's just gray. That's the problem.
I can't grow a beard, so that's what would make me jealous.
I was gonna.
He was a man
Yeah.
at 15 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna grow one for No Shave November
Yeah.
for the cancer awareness thing, you know, and I thought, I'm just gonna look like Santa Claus, and my granddaughter is gonna go Santa. No, we don't need that. No.
The other side of the bracket, they got a giant there too. They're going to play Lansing Catholic, and Lansing Catholic took it to Millington last week, and was watching some film on Lansing Catholic, and I think we were talking before we went on here. I said most at the high school level you see teams when you talk 70-40 or 70-30, you usually are thinking 70 run, 30 pass. These guys just kind of flip the field that way. I mean, they got Joey Baker, I believe, is the coach's son. I mean, this kid is just, they'll play with an empty backfield. I mean, they'll say, hey, we're going to throw it. You stop us. And they've got, I think they got one receiver nearly 1,000 yards. They got another guy with over 700 yards. Their running game, when they do run, is pretty balanced. I mean, they got a lot of guys in the 200 to maybe 300 yard range. And their quarterback, Baker, can run as well. But it would be, I always love watching passing teams anyhow. And, you know, Montague can throw the ball around a little bit. So this could be a fun game.
Yeah, I'll kick it over to David because I know he's researched this team. He's got a lot of info.
Yeah, Joey Baker's a good quarterback, and he slings it.
Yeah.
But I think if we were able to get, and we say we, Montague, is
Right.
able to get pressure in their face, it's going to cause a big difference.
Yeah. And the other thing, I was talking to Coach Danette today about it. I says, you know, one thing about it, when you have a team, if you were a wing T team or a ground and pound team and you were going to go play against the Lansing Catholic, I mean, to try to simulate what Baker can do was darn near impossible. But I said, having the fact that you've got, you know, kind of a spread offense that you can work in, I said, that's got to help. And he said, oh, yeah. He says that, and he says, you know, that's what Cooley was all this week, or is this week, is he's a scout quarterback. He's a scout team quarterback. So he basically is Joey Baker in you know, their practices and all that stuff. So to be able to have a quarterback pull it off, we talk about that with Muskegon. How do how do you defend that speed? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, how do you prepare for that? You know, well, that's kind of the same thing when you got a kid like Baker, a quarterback. If you got a guy that's dropping passes in there, precision passing, if you don't have a quarterback that can throw the ball, how do you do that justice in practice?
Yeah, and you got Lansing Catholic. That's a school that has dropped in division because they were a Division 5. I'm not sure if they were 4 at any point, but I know they're 5. They won a 5-state title a couple years ago, something like
2019.
that. And so, and that was under Jim. I think it's Jim Ahern. I think that was the coach's name. He was a Hall of Fame coach, and he retired. And now they got the Baker coaching them. And then if you look at Monty, kind of a similar deal.
Right.
Obviously, Pat Collins hasn't been around as long as Ahern was, but
Right.
still highly successful state championship coach. He didn't retire, but he kind of stepped down, and now he's at West Ottawa. But you look at programs that have just kind of, you might have had coaching changes, but they're still right there.
right.
Both of them are right there competing at a high level still.
Move on to Division 7.
Hold on a second.
Oh, you
Hold
got
on.
something?
No, I got something. I got something for you, big
Oh,
boy.
yeah, what's that?
You pick on me because of my math skills, and you go 70-40. That you came out and said 70-40.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah,
too, didn't I?
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's that big red education coming
Yeah,
out.
well,
in you.
that's right. I mean,
Oh,
we're not-
wow.
we're
And
not
that-
math
that-
majors.
And one other point about the game now.
Yeah.
About the game now. What's the weather supposed to be Saturday?
Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
And I did hear though. Well, I didn't hear. I heard the weather's not going to be good, but they do play on turf. So who does that help? I don't know if it benefits one or the other because Montague, I would imagine, is going to be pretty good on turf too. So,
And
Yeah, they're speedy.
throwing the ball.
yep.
Yeah,
Harder to throw in the wind and the rain and if it's not nice out.
yeah.
Which Montague, they like to throw, but not like that.
Not
They'll-
like
they'll
Lansing.
throw. They'll throw to set up the run.
Yeah.
Right.
Where as opposed to they're running. Lansing Catholic's going to run a little bit to try to set up what they really
Right.
want to do, which is pass the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, he averages over 17.4 yards a throw.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, so all of a sudden you're starting to think, okay, wet, sloppy ball. I mean, you would think that that's going to prevent Lansing Catholic from doing at least as precision as what they normally do. So you would think that would favor a bad day on a bad snow rain day. You would think. Here we
Yeah.
go thinking again. We already talked about that, but you would think that would play into Montague's favor because they do have a running game. Montague does. So
Ball, might be a ball control.
Yeah.
You know, or 6-minute drives, 7-minute drives, 8-minute drives.
right.
Keep that play offense and defense at the same time, as I like to say.
Yeah, and I'm not about to count Montague out. I mean, anyone who's watched them long enough, traditionally, I mean, yeah, they're going to be the underdogs. I think a lot of people would, concede that, but you just can't count them out.
Right.
They expect to win this time of year.
Sure.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Speaking of teams that win this time of year, Division 7, Muskegon Catholic. Boy, we talked about it before. This is kind of a throwback, at least the names, Muskegon Catholic and Ravenna. And I know you remember all those great battles that, we talked about it before, where you had those great teams and somebody was going to go out way too early. I mean, it should have been at least a semifinal game or whatever. And here they're meeting usually back in the day in week 1, maybe week 2. They could put it off that long, but wasn't really necessarily the case. I mean, Muskegon Catholics had a tough year, a good year all year. Ravenna, a good team, but boy, looking at the score 50-14, just a little bit too much for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think it was just a mismatch in a lot of ways. Ravenna wasn't 100%, but even so, I don't think that's going to account for the differences. I still think Catholic is a more experienced team, probably a hungrier team because they'd gotten to the regionals last year.
Right.
Lost to Montague, one of the better Montague teams you're going to ever see. And but Muskegon Catholic returned a lot of guys from that team, and I think they're kind of on a mission. I think since winning that really close game against Centerville in week 8, and then the really close one against Oak Ridge, it seems like that's really kind of kickstarted them a little bit, and I think they're just kind of a different team now.
Yeah, and Ravenna had. I mean, you're not going to make excuses, but they were dinged up. They had some guys that the walking wounded. I mean, they played a lot of the guys that were hurt, and kind of the sidebar to this was Justin Ego and Steve Zerline, former teammates and great friends. And so I said to Cal, I said, they're great friends except for maybe a couple of hours here. I mean, that's kind of how it is, and it's it's too bad to see Ravenna have to go down, but certainly, and our hearts and thoughts are with Keegan Swan battling what he's battling right now, and that really puts everything into perspective as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and from what I could see, I think Muskegon Catholic did something for him, like on the fence. They had like his number with the.
Cool.
I think the theme was to wear orange, so I know that some Ravenna kids had like the orange sleeves around their legs or whatever, and there was some orange in the stands and stuff like that. So that's cool to see that they're supporting each other that way.
Sure.
Muskegon Catholic has surprised me all year. I saw them at that multi-team scrimmage. I didn't think they were going to turn out as good as they have been. So they've really come together.
And they kind of run that thing we laugh about. I mean, when I used to talk with Coach Holmes and Zerwan, it says, I think it was Chev brought in that offense that they run years ago. Coach Cheverini years ago, who's coached every place. He's coached at Muskegon. He's coached. Yeah. I mean, we just lost him a few years ago, but boy, his thumbprint is still on that Catholic team. As far as like Mike Holmes says, well, why change it? And it's the three guys in the backfield, and they're going to come at you. It's like, here, stop us. You know what we're going to do. It's not going to be anything really tricky. But you stop us, so it's kind of neat that they kind of have that old coach tribute offense still in there a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a big key to their success is the continuity, consistency, which just kind of goes hand in hand, tradition, all those things. I mean, there's expectations there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's why we recorded a podcast earlier today here at CatchMark, and that'll be coming out soon. But we talked about the public and private debate a little bit, and there's you can be on either side of that debate, but I think what you will notice is whether you're public or private, it's all about your culture.
Right.
What culture you build. Like Montague's built quite the culture. Ravenna had one for a long time there with Dusty, and obviously Oak Ridge had it with Jack, and they still have a good culture. And Muskegon Catholic Central, there's that culture, that tradition.
Sure.
And you go down the list,
Right.
and that's what you see.
We talked about this last week a little bit too, but do you think the school of choice thing has kind of tempered that a little bit, where it was pretty much the parochial school? Yeah, okay, you got a kid from New Era, he's coming to Muskegon, what's that all about? But now you got school of choice, where you got public school kids moving around. So does that temper it a little bit?
Oh, I think so. Now you have options where before in the past you haven't. Look how many times Oak Ridge has lost to a parochial school in the football playoffs, and it's a lot.
Right.
I mean, if they didn't get to Ford Field, if you look back and see who's beat them, it's more often than not it's a parochial school that's beat them. Between West Catholic or I think Warren de La Salle, DePorce. There's so many of those schools, parochial schools. But I think now with school of choice, I think that's going to. I'm not saying it's going to level that playing field, but it's going to bring it a little bit back closer. The problem is, and I tell my buddies over in Grant too, you just don't go out and find these elite high school coaches, and when you do.
Keep them.
I don't know what you got to do to pay them. If you got to pay them more than the superintendent, I don't know, and that gets everybody up in arms. But you just got to pay them, because one man, that one guy, can change the whole culture of your high school. And you get the right guy, he'll change the whole culture of your community.
Now, you look at Oak Ridge, they don't have school choice. That's one of the few schools in there that don't have that, so they're not benefiting from that. I will say, I think it evens it a lot more. I don't want to say it's completely even. I use it as this example on the podcast as well, but you've got a young man from Spring Lake, Blake Grimmer, a really good baseball player, committed to Tennessee as a freshman. And he hasn't played because he's had like a labrum issue or whatever, but he transferred to Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Yeah.
That's an all-boys boarding school. Now, the same kid couldn't go to Macomb, Dakota and transfer because that's a public school unless his family moved. But he can go to Orchard Lake St. Mary's and live there, and there's no questions asked. So there still is a difference, I mean, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But not all private schools or programs are created the same either, though. Because I don't think Muskegon Catholic Central, that's not the same deal as like Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think there's a difference. I think maybe 20 years ago it was here. I think it's
70-40.
70-40.
Probably based on size of communities too.
Yeah.
Detroit, Muskegon.
Yeah, Metro Detroit's a different animal. Yeah.
Well, Dan Rowan at Warren de La Salle, he's competing with Orchard Lake St. Mary. Then he has his school, Warren de La Salle, and then you have Detroit Catholic Central, and then he's got 4 or 5 parochial schools. They have their own Catholic league.
But they're also pulling from a huge area. All those schools are too. Like
they're all pulling from that greater Detroit area,
which is huge. But so are some of the, like River Rouge is pulling. They're public, but some of those public schools are pulling from that too. They're busting kids in from 45-minute radius or something like that.
Right.
We used to talk to Dan about that because he was in the public school side of things. He said, "Yeah, I used to think that parochial stuff they all recruited and all that stuff." But he said, "Now that I'm on the other end of it," he says,
Yeah, sure.
exactly.
Yeah, but that's the guy that's going to go in no matter where you're at,
You're right.
public, private, and that's the guy that when you get these guys, if you want to be at that next level and you want to be playing consistently at Ford Field every Thanksgiving weekend or just about, you got to find the guys like the Dan Roans and the Shane Fairfields. You got to take care of them because I mean Shane's had opportunities to go, but he. His daughter up until last year was, a student at North Muskegon, but he's had opportunities to go on, but he's like, I want to watch my daughter play, and I'm going to stay here. This is kind of home, and so I think that playing field's getting closer, but there's still difference.
Yeah.
Bring it to the other side of the bracket. You would probably know more about Lawton than any of us, just with your connections with following football in general. They defeated Union City 44-32. What can you tell
Theirs
us
was
about?
Actually that was 35-6. I want to say.
70-40?
Well, your math's been a little off today, but we still love you.
Okay, all right.
But I think I think they handled them. It was
I
pretty.
never let facts get in the way of a
No,
good story.
that's the journalist motto too. But no, it's really not. Don't seriously, it's not. But not for me at least. But it's Lawton. I'm still trying to. I know they're really good. I know that you can just tell that this team's a little different than maybe past Lawton teams, which I did cover Lawton when I was in Kalamazoo. That was one of the teams I covered. Are they good enough to win this game? That's what I really want to see. And obviously, that's maybe a cop-out to say, well, I'm going to wait and see what happens Friday. I'm not offering an analysis or anything.
Sure.
But, the score that jumped out to me for them was they beat Montrose, which Montague played last year in the playoffs, 69-40. Now, the 69 points caught my eye, but they also gave up 40. So what does that mean when they face Catholic, which is traditionally – a good defensive team that's going to be able to take away your number one option usually. They got a great running back, a kid who's rushed for over 2,000 yards, and I think he scored 45 touchdowns, something crazy like that. So it'll be very interesting, especially when they're moving it to Hackley Stadium.
Yeah.
They're going to be on that fast track on the turf. Catholic's got some kids who can run. I'm curious to see what's going to happen in this one.
Mm-hmm. Look at this guy. He's got heart.
It was 35-6. And boy, I don't know. That kid looks good.
Oh, can I go back, by the way? One more point I want to make. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
It was 69-40 in that game, not 70-40.
Okay. All
right. Sorry, go ahead.
Which game are we on?
Yeah.
No, so Lawton. What based on what you've seen, what have been your impressions? What would you say about them?
I think it's a coin toss on those two.
Do you?
But going back to Montrose, that Lawton beat, not the same team without that kid, that quarterback. Not the same team at all. What did they do, 5-4 this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they finished. I know they beat New Lothrop early in the season, which New Lothrop was down a little bit.
Yeah.
Then New Lothrop got them pretty good in the playoffs in the rematch. And now New Lothrop got bounced too. But yeah, they lost the quarterback. They got the big kid who's going to Vanderbilt, the lineman. Mm-hmm. But again, I think they lost a decent group from last year too.
Lost a lot. That Lawton kid really impresses me. Short to the ground and just doesn't stop. So if they can stop him, maybe. But
And if they gave up 40, at what point was that against their seconds and thirds?
That's what you wonder.
Yeah, with the score being that far apart, I think a lot of coaches, I think at this point in the season are going, if they got a starter, if he's dinged up at all, let foot on the throttle, let's get that lead, and then you guys are going to come and sit here stand by me for the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. So that might have been their seconds and thirds giving up those late scores.
And then Muskegon Heights, we kind of talked about them. Great start. Hey, they're back after having missing all of last year, and then like I said, they kind of got derailed against Ludington, and their season kind of skidded from there a little bit. But they wound up losing. I'll tell you what, score-wise, I don't know how this game played out, but Carson City Crystal is a very good team, and I look at 35-26, and looks like Muskegon Heights stayed with them to a point.
Yeah, because 3 weeks earlier, Heights lost 41-14.
Yeah.
Same place, same team, same opponent.
Right.
So yeah, you got to give them credit for the strides they made, and just for kind of battling all year. This is a team that didn't have a season last year.
Yeah,
right.
The school shut it down out of COVID concerns, and then the year before they were 1-8. The year before that they were 0-9. So to come back and be, a 6-5 team.
Yeah.
You got to give them credit for they got a playoff win. They hosted a playoff game in the opener, so he's got them moving in a good direction. And I know there's some excitement, and you got to feel good for those guys. They obviously didn't get the win here, but they represented their school really well and their community really well.
Good. And off season will be key for them. Can they get in that weight room and get bigger, stronger, faster?
How many years did they go without a team? I think that probably impacted them.
They went I know the 1 year, but I'm not sure if they've gone without.
When they
prior
turned
to
into
that.
an academy, didn't they have several years?
They might have. I'm going to have to look at their at their history, but they might have had a team. But even if they had a team, things changed dramatically when they went to academy because they started losing some players.
Right.
They lose like a Deshaun Thrower to Muskegon. They lose some kids. The kid at Shores, Asante Brown. He was a Heights kid. He ends up at Mona Shores. So you get some kids moving for what they see as better opportunities.
Yeah, that hurts long term.
Yeah, and it does. It adds up. Especially at a small school like that, you can't afford to lose guys like that.
No.
Yeah, I think we always said that to get back to the school of choice argument, the two schools that I think were harmed the most by school of choice is obviously Heights and I think Orchard View.
I agree.
I think because Orchard View, there'd always be that they'd start out with some good kids and then all of a sudden, this kid would disappear and he'd say, okay, I'm going to go to Muskegon or I'm going to try the grass is greener someplace else. And it was really just tough for those guys to really, they still really haven't come back from that. They're trying, but it's a long, hard road.
And that's another thing we haven't talked about them all year because they didn't have a varsity team, but Orchard View.
Yeah.
I mean, having met and talked to their superintendent recently, it's a tough decision. It wasn't easy on any of them to make that decision to kind of pull the plug on the season, but they were doing it with the best interests of the kids.
Right.
Some schools might be able to handle it where you move up some freshmen and sophomores and say, we'll be fine. We're going to take some lumps, but we'll be fine. Right. Orchard View believe that our best solution here is to just not have a varsity season, have the juniors play JV, and then we'll get back at it next year. So be interesting to see how they bounce back, especially now they're diving into the West Michigan Conference next year. Orchard View is.
Yeah. So.
And the bigger side,
Yes.
not the smaller side.
Right.
Yeah, the
deep end of
I'm
the
sure
pool.
that crushed him because he was a football player too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Orchard View.
Yeah.
And it's not. Having talked to him, it wasn't easy for him or anybody there, but they just did what they thought. They had the best interest in mind of the kids.
Harder on the five. I think it was 5 seniors who lost their season.
Yeah.
That's who it was the hardest on.
Yeah.
I mean, other administrators, they had their opportunity to play high school or collegiate. You just took those kids' hearts and broke their hearts, and then at that point, you can't go anywhere else.
That's what's unfortunate. There's no recourse for those kids.
No, I mean they can't quick transfer to Oak Ridge.
They did play soccer. Like at least a number of them did play soccer.
Yeah.
Now, and good for them that they found something, but it's just it stinks that they didn't get that chance to finish out.
Because you can only play 99.9% of the kids only play high school football for that 4 years, and that's done. That's those elite kids that can go on and play at the collegiate level on Saturdays. Another thing about kids transferring from Heights and going to other schools, you get a lot more exposure. When you leave the Heights and all of a sudden you're going to Muskegon or you're going to Shores. I was a couple of years ago. I was at Muskegon and Shane called, said to stop by on a Friday morning. Well, Ryan Day walks in. On the Saturday, you're standing on the sideline at Grand Haven. The next thing you look, and there's PJ Fleck standing beside you because they were off those weekends. So they're just out recruiting, out flying around the country going to watch kids. And not taking a shot at Heights, but Ryan Day's not coming to Muskegon Heights.
Pete Carroll did.
That's
when
true.
he was recruiting Rojo, they went to the chicken coop.
Yeah, they did.
With our friend Wayne Holden. There's a funny story of Pete Carroll when he was at USC.
Yeah.
He's recruiting Rojo, Ronald Johnson, and they ended up at the chicken coop. So they
I've
were
seen
in
the
Heights.
picture. I've seen. But where did he go to high school?
That's true.
Yeah, he was at Muskegon.
He was at Muskegon
so,
High, and then, he knows where the good food is, right?
Sure.
well, chicken coop all day long, man. Let's go.
Well, as we wrap up here, and we kind of answered this a little bit, I mean, I'm just from our vast wealth of knowledge here, I'm thinking that we're looking at, we've got some underdogs from our area teams. Obviously, you've got Oak Ridge being an underdog to Grand Rapids Catholic. You got Montague being an underdog to Lansing Catholic. But where are we with Catholic Central and Lawton? Who's the underdog in that one, do you think?
I like Muskegon Catholic Central. I mean, all things considered, I think I just trust what they faced more than what Lawton has faced. Now that doesn't mean, like David said, that you could be a coin toss game, but I just if you're really asking me who I think will probably come out, it'll probably be Muskegon Catholic. That's just based on what I've seen, based on what I've read and heard, based on what I know about Lawton. Although this is a lot different Lawton team. This isn't quite the same Lawton team that Catholic beat 48-0 a few years ago. So.
Right. And like we all said too, the weather's not going to be that great over in Lansing. Does that slow down Lansing's passing attack enough that Montague can catch up a little bit? I mean, Montague certainly is not dog food. I mean, they're a good team. They're going in as an underdog, but would I be surprised if what's your old saying, Kel? You're a champion until you're not, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
I went against them once. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
I think the key is get pressure on that quarterback. They got 4 really good defensive backs.
Yeah.
Nichols, Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
Olson, and Isaac Jarka. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you miss him? Led the state in interceptions last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's been quiet in interceptions this year?
They're not throwing at him as much.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Jarkey, he had a huge sack on a corner blitz Friday. That was at a key point. You could say there's a lot of key points, but it was like on a 4th down play. I think it was 28-22 at that moment still. He came off the edge and got the sack and got the turnover on downs. He's making his presence felt still.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's a hitter.
And then Oak Ridge taking on, you talk about your David and Goliaths against Grand Rapids Catholic. They're playing at home. But is there something to be said for Oak Ridge? Not a lot of people expecting them to win, so maybe you're a little bit loose. Maybe you throw caution to the wind a little bit, saying, "Hey, nobody's giving us a chance." Is that Kerry Harger's speech in the locker room? Hey, nobody believes in us except us. Let's go out and get them. That sort of a thing.
Keep the score tight as long as you can. You allow more faith for your players. And, the old AKA Jack Sugar story, Kerry Harger go grab a blue sledgehammer and carry that around, start carrying that around, and the old sledgehammer story, which is too long to get into now, but, that was one of Sugar's biggest motivating ploy back in the day to beat Montague. He carried that all over. So, Kerry, go find that blue sledgehammer and start hoisting that thing around.
Yeah,
because
I wonder how much last year's outcome plays into the psyche of the team, because they went over there last year and it was, it got out of hand, of course, because Grand Rapids Catholic was very good.
Right.
And it was all during the COVID thing with the shutdown and the restart. That was a 58-7 game.
Yeah.
I think Vanderput maybe scored on either a return or a long pass play is how he scored. But, how much is that on their minds in a good way? Are they hungry to kind of show that's not the team we were?
Right.
Or are they going to go in there and say, oh, this is the team that took it to us last year? I mean, what's their mindset?
the big offensive line, if they start winning the battles up front, they might be able to do something.
Sorry, Oak Ridge. I don't see it.
No warm fuzzies over there from Dave.
I mean, I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for you, Oak Ridge.
All right.
Spoken like a true Montague guy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we've done all the damage we can do here for another week, huh?
We did. I think so.
I think
You?
so. Yeah, I think so. Hey, thank you very much,
Yeah,
Dave.
Dave,
for,
my
great
pleasure.
job.
Thank
wanna
you for coming on.
Yeah, I want to thank Dave for coming in and adding his insight, and Cal and Scott. And until next week, right?
That's right.
Hopefully we'll have some teams to talk about next week. Be an awful.
Hopefully it's not just a recap show.
Yeah, that's right. So we wish all our teams the best, and congratulations to the ones that are moving on, and certainly a tip of the cap to the ones that kind of moved out here. So for myself, John Russell, Scott DeCamp, Cal Van Single, and David Dusenberry, that's going to do it for us. Have a good night, everyone.